Hi everybody, and this is our review from our clinic from last week. So let's go ahead and get started. First point. Okay, here we go. This is actually, the first point we were filming, and this is a good one to start. So we start with your basic cross-court return, and what we want to pay attention to are these two people, how they're moving to the ball, and are they keeping their focus on each other. And right here we've got Erin focusing on Dottie. The one thing, if you look at Dot, she is moving laterally, but ideally with this ball being driven into Cheryl's corner of the court, along with moving laterally and moving to the flight of the ball, she would want to move up a little bit closer to the net. So let's go ahead and continue to point out. Ball goes back cross court. The net people reshift again. At this point, again, let's keep our focus on that opposite net person. So if we're going to look behind ourselves and check out our partner, it's got to be that quick glance so we never lose track of that person across the net from us. So let's move on to the point. So we have another situation that comes up here. Ball goes deep back to Tatiana, and she throws in a cross court, and here comes Cheryl. Okay, and here's what Cheryl's looking at. Well, here's what any of us are looking at. We've got small target here, small target here, and yes, the Grand Canyon here. So whenever you see your opponents two back on the baseline, that middle is really your primary target the vast majority of the time. And Cheryl goes back cross court with it. Okay, and now let's see, what is Cheryl looking at this point? Same thing, she's got a little target to each side. She's got the bigger target right through the center. Let's see if she takes advantage of it. And she does. She goes into the middle, and Dot makes a nice recovery out of the center. Lob goes over Cheryl's head. Okay, good situation here. Ball's going over Cheryl's head, and Cheryl knows Erin's going to have to run this down for her, so her goal is to get back here as fast as she can. As far as the lob going up, Erin's on the defensive, and that's where if Tatiana can move up a little bit into the court along with her partner, with the other team being on the defensive, we can be on the offensive. Okay, now at this point, now Tatiana, what is she looking at? Look at this sizable gap between Erin and Cheryl. I have a funny feeling here this ball is going through the center of the court, and it does. Okay, let's move on forward here to the next point. Just a little fast forward action. Okay, let's see what happens here. Ball goes cross court. Dot hits a beautiful angle that takes Erin out to her single sideline. And as I mentioned in the group, one of the things we really have to be aware of is where you are in relation to your partner. So if we take Cheryl right now, what is a great concern here is this gap that's between the two of them. It's pretty big. So obviously what Cheryl or any of you would want to do in this situation when you recognize your partner's been pulled out wide is to slide back and slide more into the middle to fill that bigger gap of the court. And even though I don't know if Dot makes this shot, it's again, if Erin doesn't make a good shot off of that, Dot or any player has pretty much a freebie right down the center of the court here. Unfortunately, Erin hits the ball a little bit out of Dot's reach. And now Dot has hit it back to Cheryl. So what's Cheryl looking at? Huge gap over there because we've got a little target there, a little target there, big gap there. Pretty basic where this ball goes, and it does. And Cheryl, good shot. So let's move on forward to the next point. Okay, This is a play, I like it. Is that, when you're moving up into the court and you've got the ball on the strong side of your body, as Dot does here, go right through the net person. All you're really doing in this situation is going to the person who has the least amount of time to react, and you can see what happened to Cheryl at the net. She didn't have time enough to react to it. And even though she made a nice reflex volley off of that, the majority of the time the person in Dot's position here is going to win that point just because the pace is overcoming that net person. Okay. Interesting situation here. Okay, here we go. Dot's doing a good job of paying attention to Cheryl across the net. So Tatiana sends that ball over. So when that ball is sent over to that opposite baseline, this person's got to make a decision. Am I going to hold my position in case there's a lob? If it's not going to be a lob, I've got to move up into the service box, because if I can do that, I can take advantage of that center area of the court. Let's see what happens here. Dot doesn't really close. She's still on her service line, so she's a bit off the net here. She's going to try to move up to this ball, and hopefully she can see this big target area in which to go after. And I bet you, if anything, if Dot were a couple steps closer to the net, that would be a clean winner. Okay, of note here is if we isolate Cheryl, let's see how much time is spent on looking behind herself and looking back. Dot sends it to Aaron back of the court. Cheryl is gazing, 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 gazing. And obviously one of the huge issues with that is the longer you're looking at your partner, we just lose track of these two people as to where they are repositioning themselves, so that when the ball goes back over the net, it's going to be difficult to have enough time to really react to those situations. And now we're in play, and then you can just bring it. Okay, so the ball has been sent back to the baseline here off the return. And again, this net person, you've got a decision to make. Do you read a drive being hit off of this, or do you read a lob? And in this case, the way the setup looks like, it looks like a forehand drive to me. So I think is that Roberta that's back there on the service line? If we can get her to just move up a little bit, that would make a huge difference. Okay, Roberta does a good job because she refocused back on the opposite net person. Here's the angle off of, I think that was Chris. So now she's pulled wide. So now the responsibility of this person is, are they shifting and filling that gap in the center of the court? The other thing is, what are we looking at here? Where do we hit our ball? And we see a pretty significant space between the two net people on the other side. And let's see where this ball goes. And the gap got even larger as time went on here. And let's see if it actually goes through the center, which is, the shot to hit at this point. And sure enough, it went right in between. I believe that's Roberta and Chris over there. So great shot, Ernessa. And let's move on forward here. This is good. This was a one-hit point here, but this is such a critical shot to have in doubles. And that is if you have a strong forehand or backhand drive. And I think we were talking about this is, is to let your partner know that, hey, if I get the right kind of serve, I'm going to go right through that net person and see what happens. So here we have Aranessa who's lining up and just gets her, just nails the backhand. And not only at the net person, but, you know, when you have that right-hander in front of you, you're nailing your strong shot into their weaker side backhand volley. And in case it comes over, we have a partner who's just zeroed in on there for anything that might come back over the net. So just a good play is something that periodically during a match you always have to do for obvious reasons, is keep that middle of the court open and keeping that person or opponent frozen on their side of the court. Okay, now here we have just a good wide return of serve that takes Erin deep into the corner, and again, as the non-hitting partners, to be aware of how that ball went across the net and how much angle was put in behind it, because we can all just see this huge gap. You know, the spacing is just, you know, leaving the middle of the court open like that is just asking for problems. So obviously in this situation, as that, if Cheryl could recognize the return has been hit wide, is to not only move over, but to back up and fill that gap, that big gap in the center, and force your opponents to go to their smaller targets on the court. So here it is. In fact, Erin got, you know, her momentum took her way off the court, and there's just nobody on the court here at this point. So if the opponents on the other side can somehow get the racket through this area of the court, and I think what happens here is that instead of the ball going through the center, the second best option, and that is as you're closing in on top of that other net person, is go right down it at their feet, where they really can't do much with the shot. And that's pretty much what happened here. Not a bad option, the middle or going at that net person there. Good play. Just want to reinforce something here. If we look at Aranessa here, the position behind the service line, shading more to the center and not concerned with her alley side or the side behind her there. So great positioning to start the point. And here it is again. We've got that strong drive going at the net person, and I believe they actually communicated on that. So we've got somebody who's just ready for anything that might come off the racket. It's called teamwork, and tough volley for Cheryl to deal with. Again, that can be so effective for all of you, knowing which side you can drive better off and when to attack that net person in front of you and not avoiding them all the time. Okay, everybody's in good shape here. Okay, so here's a situation here where the ball has been sent back to the baseline. And it's up to these two net people is to recognize, is it a lob or is it a drive? And here you have a player that's inside the baseline. She's stepping in to hit a backhand and to me, I'm reading drive. And if we look at the positioning of the net people, they're sitting on the service line. Problem with that is your feet are open to be abused. Also, being that far back, you're leaving the middle of the court more wide open for your opponents. Let's see where this backhand goes. And it goes down into Erin's feet. So if you ever recognize from the baseline you're making someone play from below the net, obviously from this position is to hightail it, move up. She's not lobbing. She's only going to be hitting a weaker shot off of that. And you can see Aranessa here is just keying in on that person. You can see she's actually moving in a little bit because Erin's playing from a defensive position. She's moving up into an offensive position. Let's see where the ball ends up. Comes back across the center. And Aranessa, hey, that's good stuff. That's what allows you to do these good plays. She doesn't play that strong of a shot. Now she sees an opening, Okay, now we've got the lob coming up. So now this is, I always love these situations when they happen, that when a ball goes over your head, what does this person need to do? Because they can't get it, they're hoping their partner can get it. So obviously what she needs to do is, as quick as possible, is to get back over to the other side of the court, get turned around, because she's looking back at her partner, doesn't know where her opponents are. And you can just see her eyes are fixated on the ball, watching her partner run it down. But we don't know what those two people are doing. So when you're making that switch after you take a look at your partner, get turned back around as quickly as you can and pick up your opponents where they are, so that you can hopefully play some sort of defense to get back into the point. The good thing is, when she got turned around, look where she just positioned herself, into the biggest target area. So if someone's going to beat her, it's got to be to that smaller target or through there, and she's taken away the middle. And guess what? She's able to get back into the point. Oh, almost. I thought she had that one. I forgot. That's okay. Still good position. That's a good try there. All right, so let's move on up. We've got a few more points here to take a look at. Okay, the serve has gone out wide, and look how she's repositioned herself and taking the middle away to the best of her ability. Ball goes out to Erin. So now, where does she play this volley? Yeah, this is the one where she plays it through the center, but being properly positioned allows, look at that, she's right on that volley. Back to Erin. Okay, now the ball's pulled her out a little bit wider. Who's got the middle on the other side? Oh my goodness. This is important. So let's back this up a second. So Erin swings this volley. Now when that volley goes over there, now it's important for her to reposition herself and move with the ball as it's moving to that side of the court, because from where Erin is hitting that volley, it's going to be tough to get into that little target over there. And she could see, if she's going to hit that ball, she's already eyeballing this area, and pretty much, I'm pretty sure that's where the ball goes, and it does. Great decision to go through that area of the court. And then again, she's not assuming that she's hit a winner. The ball's gone over to this side of the court, and she's repositioning herself to get back into the center of the court where the action is. And guess what? Oh, it's a good lob. This is a great point. Okay, where does everybody go? Lobbing to the center. I love that. And there it is. Erin is pinching the center again and taking that shot away. So Roberta's got to play that more back up the line. And I believe this was your angled winner that Erin couldn't get to. Great shot. All right, let's go. I think we have a couple more points here. These were good points here to finish. This is critical here. This is where a sharply angled forehand has been hit. And the person who's getting in a tough position here is Cheryl, because this ball is pulling Erin off to the side of the court here. She's basically on her single side, and again, this is what happens to players. And this applies to everybody, is just don't leave such a big space in the middle of the court, because the only thing Cheryl's left open is this tiny little space over here and this area behind her, but her opponents are being at the net are really not in a position to be in a lob situation. They're looking at driving a volley. And so let's see what ends up with this point. Ball goes up, and the opponents here can both see this. And so whoever gets the volley or whomever gets the overhead, it's an easy decision where we're going to go with it. And right through the center there, and Cheryl just does not have enough time, because at this point when this lob went up, ideally, I would say, based on where everybody is right now, Cheryl would want to be back into this area so that we have an equal distribution of space in the court here, and she's got a fair to better chance to get a racket on the ball. And being that close and that far away from the middle just does not give her the opportunity to play defense off of that. So, everybody, that was just a great job. I hope you see some value in these points. I'd say, as far as a summary, if you've got a strong ground stroke off the baseline, go through that net person occasionally, and by all means, be always aware of where your partner has been pulled out to off of a cross-court ball, because sometimes you just need to get right into the middle of the court because that angled ground stroke has pulled your opponent that far off the court. They're in the green. Someone's got to be in the middle of the court. And yes, you're giving up a couple other areas in the court, but just never leave the middle open. It's the easiest area for people to beat you with. And that's about it. That's your tip of the day. Thank you very much, and enjoy the video, and I hope to see you guys on the court here after we're done winning the playoffs, okay? Thanks. Bye, everybody.